Here's something that is very important to me with DTF and things that I believe that other companies completely overlook. And I think it's a huge detriment. For me, DTF is a workflow. The workflow begins with the software. Okay, there's certain industry dominant softwares that are very good with the DTF market, and particularly the way that white ink being dominant has to be laid down. And then you have, because you have to use a white layer for almost anything, the whole point is the white creates the base color for all your other inks laying down onto. Take a black t-shirt and you have to be able to have the white as the basis so you're not just absorbing into the black. So your white now becomes your white, just like you would print on a piece of paper or an adhesive vinyl. Then you have the printer. Then you have the ink itself, which is going to vary. Everyone has different ink chemistry. And then you have the powder, the film, because the film has to be receptive to the ink, and then the ink has to be receptive with the powder. And then that goes through a shaker.
Yes.
And then the shaker ultimately is kind of where the magic happens, and you have a finished product coming out of the shaker. And then you have the finishing process, in some cases, a cutter. So if you want to automate, you want to have things pre-cut for you so you don't have to do it by hand. And then you want to have a good heat press, where you ultimately transfer it and put it onto the t-shirt or the hat or whatever you're doing. That's what I loosely call the workflow.
Yes.
This is a workflow intensive process. There's a lot of other things I do, like I can go downstairs right now and print something to a latex printer, and it's latex printer and sticker, right? And then maybe a cutter, but there's no complex workflow here. It's just done. You guys have a whole workflow. And the way I view DTF is if you don't take into account that workflow and how it works, any point of that workflow becomes a weak link. Like let's say you have a shaker that is malfunctioning. Well, the rest of your workflow is useless.
Yes.
You're not doing anything. You're not printing. It's all of no value. What I really appreciate what you guys did is you went and said, we're going to build the whole workflow, software, profiles, ink, powder, film, printer, shaker, cutter, heat transfer. And we're going to test everything with workflow in mind.
Uh-huh.
Whereas nobody else does that. If they do it superficially. Even the Japanese OEMs, they don't make shakers. So they're going to use all these different shakers, except maybe Roland at least tried to narrow it down through a recommendation of using one of these two shakers. Films, does Epson have a film? Does Mamaki have a film? Do they test with the same film? Do their profiles work with the same film? Because coatings on films are different. I know that from the inkjet days. You guys are one of the few companies that have the workflow mastery, and I'm a workflow guy. So tell me a little about your approach to workflows and why that's important, because you obviously get it, or you wouldn't have the whole workflow built out like you have.
So let me tell you how we started. Okay, when we started doing this, we did it from a reverse aspect. Okay, this is a heat transfer. What we tried to do is we tried to develop our film, our powders, everything based on how we heat transfer. And as you know, from a heat transfer standpoint, you have polyester, you have cottons, you have heavy, thick stuff. So what we did was we worked backwards, right? So one thing we wanted to accomplish was number one, 1 second to 2 second press times on polyester, so it doesn't damage or window into the polyester. 2 to 3 seconds on your cottons, so it doesn't window but still sticks. So and high pressure. So our theory is we go at about 120 psi on our heat presses, fast and heavy, hot peel. Now going backwards through the system, we needed to know what the first cure, second cure, and all of these aspects come from the film, and the powder. So what we've tried to do is, from a reverse aspect, we see what it's going to do on a polyester, which is, make sure it doesn't bleed, make sure we're not overheating it. Where a lot of people have gone the reverse process, and they say, I cringe when I see people say it takes 30 seconds to press this heat press thing. And what happens is you get bleeding, you get ghosting, you get all this stuff just destroying clothes. So we did it from a reverse aspect. Okay, so number one, we wanted to make sure that our heat pressing process was good. Then we blended our powders to the point where it's going to cure at a lower temp. So therefore we're not yellowing the films or bleeding off anything in there, or what we like to call making it crispy, right? There's nothing worse than taking a heat transfer, listening to it, and it sounds like, you're crumpling up tinfoil. So reverse process, going back into the printer, then we went back and said, okay, let's work this way with DuPont. DuPont has been a big, big plus to what we've done from an ink standpoint. And then we originally we had crunchy ink. We had to cure it so high in order to hit the temperature on the film to cure the ink. Once we've got that down, then we went to thanks to DuPont, we went to Neo Stampa and Edit, who completely poo-pooed the fact that, what do I want to do with DTF? It's never going to be around long. They're an old sublimation software. Reality is they came back and said, wow, it's taken off. And thank
That's
God they
right.
actually started working with us to try to make things happen, from our inks to our films to our
Expanders.
color expanders, all these different types of materials. And now a lot of people are actually migrating to that Neo Stampa and Edit because it's so stable. And it's not like some of the other softwares out there that that converted kind of haphazardly to DTF because they needed to do it. I mean, believe me, we've tried them all out. We've tried all systems out. But the most stable to us, ease of use and everything, was Stampa and Edit. And as we go along, we add cutters, and they add a cutter for us, and they'll add all different types of items for us. So it's been a real good relationship, and our whole workflow is based on trials and trials and trials before we release. I mean, we went, what, 8, 9 months before
Yeah.
we released before we released the Neo Stampa. We went 3 or 4 months before we got what we needed in the formulation for DuPont, and then it took another 6 months to get it commercial. So that was one of the things that we felt we were going to be real successful at, is it's R&D. I mean, in R&D, as you know, you win and you lose. And
Sure.
we
Sure.
certainly can say we've lost and we won.
Yeah.
But we always
Well,
we
look,
always we always talk about the products that we're promoting and working hard on. Is it's a system. So whether we're at a trade show or a customer's buying our machine, they're buying a system from us, and the better we can make that system for them, the easier it is for everybody. I mean, they're more profitable. Their product is top notch. It's color profiled. They're hitting those colors job after job, printing that same job, week after week. And along with that, the problems, aren't there. We're printing on the same films. We're printing on, we have the same inks. So, the color profiles and that software is, like Jim said, it's the best in the industry for sure.
I completely concur with the direction you've gone in. Um, I like the fact that you started from the heat press and worked backward. That makes a lot of sense.